Coming up on the show, there are new details surrounding the attack on the CDC headquarters on Friday. We're going to visit with a former head of the agency and get his take on the tragic and deadly sequence of events. Also, one Metro Atlanta County 911 service is getting a huge high-tech upgrade. We're going to look at how law enforcement hopes it will lead to saving more lives. And one of the 80s top rock pop bands is back on tour, kicking off right here in the ATL in an untraditional location. This is The Take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines and we look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite the experts in to share their take on today's top stories. We try to have just a little bit of fun as well. Yesterday, we learned that the damage from Friday's attack on the CDC headquarters was much greater than we first thought. Two sources within the CDC referred 11Alive to an internal meeting which detailed at least 181 bullet holes found in 4 buildings and a guard shack. Fortunately, no CDC employees were physically harmed, but a Cobb County police officer, 33-year-old David Rose, was fatally shot while responding to the scene. Health and Human Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. paid a visit to the CDC headquarters. Later, Kennedy visited with the DeKalb County Police Chief and met privately with the widow of Officer David Rose. Secretary took to social media to issue a statement saying, "We are deeply saddened by the tragic shooting at the CDC's Atlanta campus and took the life of Officer David Rose. We stand with his wife and 3 children and the entire CDC family." There have been 21 permanent directors of the CDC since the agency was created back in 1946. Today, we are bringing in one of the past directors to share his thoughts on and emotions on what took place over this past weekend. Joining us now is Dr. Thomas Frieden, who has served as the CDC director from June 2009 to January 2017. Welcome to the show, Doc.
Great to be with you, Chesley.
All right. First of all, give us your reaction of what happened, when you heard what happened at the CDC this past weekend.
My heart goes out to the family, friends, and colleagues of Officer David Rose and to everyone at CDC. We stand with you, we honor your service, and we hold you in our hearts. It's a horrible thing to see people who dedicate their lives to protecting others come under attack. And I think this is a moment to step back and say, whatever you believe, reject violence, listen to others, especially others you don't agree with, and let's figure out to turn down the emotional volume some and to move forward together, because this kind of violence doesn't solve anything. It's a problem, it's not the solution, and we need, as a society, to be able to listen to each other and to respect each other's beliefs.
Yeah. Doc, talk to me about the culture inside the CDC, and did you feel safe when you were there?
Well, I'll tell you, when I was CDC director, every epidemic intelligence service officer and hundreds of other staff responded to the Ebola outbreaks in West Africa, the world's first Ebola epidemic. It was a very stressful situation, and the president of Liberia, one of the 3 affected countries, President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, said to me, when all the rest of the world was running away from Liberia, you and the rest of the CDC staff were running toward us to help. And when I thanked one of the many CDC staff who had been there for months working, what he said to me, I'll never forget. He said, I want to be able to tell my children what I did in the war against Ebola, just as the older generation is proud of what they did in World War II. So seeing the attacks on people who are there to protect us is really terrible. We need to protect the people, health workers, public health workers, who protect us. That's essential for all of our health.
Yeah. We're hearing that the suspect reportedly acted upon some false beliefs about vaccines. How big of a threat is health misinformation to both the public trust and safety? And are you shocked that it turned deadly?
Well, on the one hand, we really don't know what all of the shooters' motivations were. We do know there are a lot of falsehoods out there. And some of them, unfortunately, are coming from Secretary Kennedy. Many of the things that he says are simply not true. It's okay to have your own opinion, to say, I don't want to get this vaccine, or I don't trust the data, but making up things and saying things that aren't true, it doesn't help anyone. And we really need to try to get back to where you can disagree about opinions, but we should be able to agree on what's certain and what's not certain in the facts. But I think the more important issue here is just to emphasize that we stand with the people of CDC. We mourn for Officer Rose and his family, and we hope that this will be a turning point to turning down the violence. We have seen enormous attacks on public health and healthcare workers all over the country. It's a real risk. It's a risk not just to people doing those jobs, but it's a risk to the people who those people protect. It's a risk to all of us when we don't allow our health workers, whether they're nurses and doctors or public health workers, to do their jobs. We are less safe.
Yeah. And what lessons should lawmakers take from this incident when considering funding for public health security and outreach?
Well, safety first. We have always said in public health entities, safety first. Our staff need to know that they are safe when they do their jobs. And whatever that takes, we need to make sure it happens. There is a certain irreducible risk. There are certain things you can't avoid. If you go into an outbreak zone, you might get infected, though we take every measure possible to minimize that risk. But certainly the people who dedicate their lives to protecting the rest of us shouldn't have to worry about being attacked for doing their job.
Yeah. Dr. Thomas Frieden, thanks so much for joining us. Thank you for your insight today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, take care. All right, we are expecting a press conference from the GBI to give us an update on the attack. That's slated for 10 o'clock. Once that happens, we'll bring it to you right here on 11 Live Plus. All right, we'll be back right after this.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back.
President Trump declaring a public safety emergency in the nation's capital, announcing he is sending the National Guard troops to the streets of Washington, D.C., claiming that crime is out of control there. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr. And Alice, the president, good morning to you, first of all. The president saying he has the power to do this under what's called the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. Break down this justification of this move for us, and how soon could we see those troops in the streets of D.C.?
So, good morning, Chesley. President Trump does have direct access and control and authority over the D.C. National Guard, unlike in any of the states, because of the fact that D.C. is not a state. So there is a little bit of a difference here in terms of how he can tap the National Guard in D.C. However, it has never been done before to access this particular aspect of D.C.'s home rule. So a lot of people are pointing to just how unusual this move is. It is within his powers, and it is, similar to something that we've seen in Los Angeles, in other deployments of the National Guard and troops in the U.S. It's another step toward pushing the limits of the ability to use U.S. troops in American territory. The mayor of D.C., she slammed the move, but she did say that there's nothing really that D.C. can do at this point to legally block it.
Speaking of the mayor, because of what she is saying, she's calling this an unprecedented move, as you just mentioned. Are we looking at this battle heading to the courts?
So we do know that the D.C. Attorney General talked about looking into potential legal options. But again, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser said that while this was unsettling and unprecedented, she said it wasn't particularly surprising and that she intends to comply with the president's move here and didn't see necessarily a legal pathway to try to challenge this, though the Attorney General of D.C. is looking into potential options.
Yeah. Is this a situation where we could see some congressional intervention in here? And what are the folks on Capitol Hill saying about this situation?
So certainly there's a lot of pushback from Democrats on Capitol Hill, and we've heard a number of Democrats arguing that maybe this is another attempt at distraction from still trying to move the narrative on from trying to get the Epstein files released. We heard that from Jamie Raskin, who is a Democratic representative from Maryland, near the District of Columbia. But in order to deploy the National Guard here for 30 days, that does not require intervention from Congress, any congressional authority. If President Trump wanted to extend the deployment of National Guard troops in D.C. beyond 30 days, at that point, then Congress would have to step in and give authority. And something that, is left open-ended. We heard from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. He said that whether it's a matter of days, weeks, or months is up to President Trump, how long he actually wants to keep the deployment going. And what metrics would he necessarily be looking to decide whether he felt that there had been, an adequate improvement? We did hear from the head of the police union here in Washington, D.C., who said that while there has been a lot of reporting about the fact that crime statistics are down, and that earlier this year in January, the U.S. Attorney's Office said that crime was at a 30-year low in D.C., violent crime. Metro Police said there had been a 26% drop in violent crime since last year. The head of the police union says that that's not the feeling on the ground, that he thinks that any talk of a recent drop in crime is in fact preposterous, but that he said it would take more than 30 days to really get a turnaround, and what D.C. police would need is more resources, more officers, and more long-term help.
All right, Alice Barr, really appreciate your insight on this. Thanks so much. All right, we're going to have more on the president's move in D.C. a little bit later on in the show. But coming up, we're going to talk to the Cobb County Department of Emergency Communications about their new 911 system. You want to stay tuned for that. We'll be right back right after this. All right, welcome back to the show. When you call 911, help is on the way. But now in Cobb County's dispatchers, they might be able to see what you're seeing before first responders even arrive. Here with more on this high-tech upgrade is Desmond Harris with the Cobb County Department of Emergency Communications. Desmond, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right. What makes Cobb County's new 911 system stand out compared to others in the metro area or even across the country?
So we are the largest emergency communication center to implement this platform. It changes how 911 professionals respond to emergencies. Like never before, we're now able to see what is going on the scene before our responders get there. We're supposed to be their eyes and ears, and this changes the way that we do that.
How do you see it? How are you? Is this like instantly my mind thinks of like a Zoom type of a deal, right? Where we're able to see each other like we're doing right now. But how does this work? Walk me through it.
Think of it more as a FaceTime call. So when people call 911 in Cobb County, we'll be able to send them a link. And once they get that link, they can open that in their text messages, allowing us access to better location information and then also access to the camera. It's only one way, so they're not seeing us in the 911 center. But from there, they're able to turn their camera around and show us what's going on directly in front of them.
Gotcha. Now, this is internet-based, correct?
Yes, the new EZNet network is IP-based, and the platform is a cloud-based platform.
So what safeguards are in place, like, for example, if the power goes out or in some other disaster and you can't really access your internet?
So for us in 911, there's always a backup to the backup to the backup. But for our callers, they should have no issues communicating with us, calling us, and still voice calls are available.
Okay. What kind of training did your team have to go through for these new tools?
We've been training for this new platform for a few months now. We had the team from the company come out. They sat down with us. They showed us the tips and tricks, and our team has been using it. They were here on launch day, walking around, making sure everything was going well, making sure our team had their questions answered.
How long have you been using it now?
Just a week. We went live with it last Tuesday.
All right. And have you seen any cases in the real world where they've made a huge difference? Tell us about one of them or two of them.
So I will say calls do ring into the center faster. As far as the videos being used, we're still trying to collect some information to see how it's working and how the citizens are responding to it. we haven't had any that I know of, any calls where someone has turned their camera around and shown us video and it's been able to lead to an apprehension or to an effective response. But we do look forward to that happening.
Yeah. How are these upgrades going to help you during those high volume call moments, you know?
So the platform also has an emergency call triage feature where when we get those overload of calls, it'll determine through GIS data. A lot of people are calling about the same thing here. So it'll put those calls in a different queue, and our team members will still be able to answer and process those calls, but they'll just be put into a different queue. So it'll help us with that workload.
How long have you been working in this particular area?
I have been here for 10 years.
10 years, all right? And so you're seeing the cusp of this new technology. Do you think it's going to spread in other areas?
Absolutely. The system that we went to, it's an update to some older technology, some legacy technology, and we're excited about the advancements in technology for emergency communications.
Okay. Desmond Howard, thank you so much, man, for this. Sarah Harris, I'm sorry. Thanks so much for enlightening us on this new technology, and we look forward to hearing more about it.
Of course, thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. All right, AI now helping insurance claims. We're going to discuss that coming up. Stay tuned. Welcome back. If you ever had an insurance claim denied, well, you know the frustration and the fight it could take to get it reversed. And now, a new kind of ally is stepping in to help. We're talking about artificial intelligence. Here now to share how this tech works and whether or not it could change the balance of power between patients and insurers is Neil Shah. He is the CEO of Counterforce Health, which helps people write insurance appeal letters with AI for free. Welcome to the show, Neil.
Thanks for having me, Chesley. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. All right, what made you decide to take on insurance appeal process and offer it for free?
You know, I went through a multi-year cancer journey taking care of my wife. And, the hardest part of the whole thing was actually fighting the insurance companies. And then later, I've been running a caregiving platform helping tons of older adults across the country get care. And I'm seeing the same thing, kind of out in the field. A lot of people are fighting health insurance companies when they're taking care of a loved one through serious illness or disability. And I think it's just an absolute tragedy. So I kind of thought, okay, what can we do using our skills and modern technology to help people fight back? So that was really, the origin of the idea.
Gotcha. How does AI actually build these letters out?
Yeah, so what happens is when these health insurance companies deny your claim, you got to go through a lot of medical records. You got to go through your policy coverage document. You got to upload things. Like, it's hundreds and hundreds of pages. And to take a regular person to do this, which I've done, would take 8 hours, 10 hours of work. Some would take 5 hours to write all this stuff. The way our AI works, and this is kind of a fun project that we built, is you can upload all your documents and it will parse through them, and in less than 2 minutes, it will give you a very well-crafted letter. It is trained on billing code databases. It's trained on successful appeal strategies from a lot of state insurance regulator databases, and then it keeps learning over time. So not only can the AI do in 2 minutes what it might take you 8 or 10 hours to do, it can actually do a better job. So 70% of people are winning their appeals. And I think that's just like a really cool thing, for people to have at their disposal.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what kind of success rate are you seeing so far? And so you just mentioned that. How quickly are the denials being overturned?
Sometimes same day. Believe it or not, we even have clinics using it. And by the way, I forgot to mention, the tools are completely free to use. We are a social impact organization, fully grant funded, so we don't charge people a dime for this stuff. And, I think it's a human tragedy what's going on, all these people having to fight back against health insurance. So completely free use. Individual patients are sometimes winning same day, next day. Clinics are using it, and they're sometimes winning same day. So it's really cool to see. If you write a really well-crafted appeal letter, you have a good shot of winning. Oftentimes it's like an administrative error by the insurance company, or sometimes they're just testing and doing it on purpose to see if you'll actually respond and fight back.
Wow.
So, doing this in 1 or 2 minutes really eases the burden on a lot of people.
Have you noticed certain types of cases where AI is specifically effective?
Yes, AI is very effective in medication denials. So a lot of times people are denied access to critical medications, whether it's rheumatology, autoimmune disorder, whether it's oncology, cancer, other needs. A lot of times medications will be denied, because they'll want to see more evidence, more proof that you actually need it, especially if it's like a second line treatment. So we're seeing high efficacy in that. So I'd say oncology, neurology, rheumatology, we're seeing very, very high.
Some insurers are being accused of using AI to deny claims. Do you see this as a AI fighting AI kind of a situation?
I do, sadly, and that's really why we built this. So I actually wrote about this. I put a book out, Insured to Death, and I'm happy to send to anyone if it's free. So just email us and reach out to us. But I wrote an entire book on what's going on. Health insurance is using AI to deny people programmatically, sometimes in like as little as a second. No one's even reviewing this stuff. So if you have to write a letter and it takes you 8 hours or 10 hours, no wonder people are not going to fight back. They're going to give up. So I think that it hasn't caught up yet, and that was really our mission: is how do we build tools to kind of arm the resistance? It is going to be AI versus AI. And, if you're writing it manually yourself, it's not a fair fight. So we're very passionate about this. In the book, I share a lot of appeal strategies. Again, happy to give it to people for free. Just email us or reach out to us. But, our mission is that we think the field has been tilted towards insurers. And, denial rates have gone through the roof over the last few years. Some people, there's 25% denial rates at some of these companies. And, an interesting statistic is over 1 in 5 adults in America have been denied a health insurance claim over the last year. So it's kind of, I personally think this is ridiculous. What's the point of having health insurance if when you get sick, you get denied?
Right. Yeah. Neil, thank you so much for your insight on this, and thank you for what you're doing, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity. Happy to help people.
All right. Take care now. All right. You're watching The Take, folks. We'll be right back right after this. Taking a look now at the podium at the GBI headquarters in DeKalb County. We're expecting an update from the agency on Friday's attack on the CDC headquarters. Our Aisha Howard will be anchoring the coverage presser on 11Alive Plus and the ATL. It starts in about a half hour from now.
While this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past that we're totally surprised.
That was Washington, D.C. Mayor Bowser just reacting to President Trump's move yesterday to take over the district's police department and activate 800 members of the National Guard in hopes of reducing crime. Here now to offer more context in this move is Emory political science professor and friend of the show, Andrea Gillespie. And welcome back to the show, first of all.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so what makes this this move of legal status that the president has to directly assume control over the police force?
Well, DC is in a special state because it is not surrounded by a state. So it is not part of an existing state. So Atlanta is part of Georgia. You would expect that the governor would intervene if there were something terrible happening in Atlanta first. Washington, D.C. as a federal district has its own special status. So we all know that D.C. doesn't have voting representation in Congress. It doesn't have senators. It only has a delegate, not a full voting House member. And so its budget and its oversight is overseen by the federal government. So Congress provides its budget. Congress has committees that oversee what's happening there. And in the case of emergencies, based on the 1973 Home Rule Act, the president has the right to be able to intervene. So that's why Mayor Bowser couldn't say that she was going to resist this takeover, because she really isn't in a place legally where she's able to do that.
The president called on something called the Home Rule Act as a reason for this move. Tell us what that is, and does it allow him to call the National Guard for this reason?
Yes. So the short answer is yes, he can call the National Guard for emergencies. So I think that, if there's going to be any contestation over this, it's going to be whether or not the carjacking of a former Doge employee actually rises to the level of an emergency. This is not to minimize any crime issues that are in D.C., but those statistics are in dispute. And if we look at the National Uniform Crime Reporting data that the FBI puts out, crime has started to go down on most violent indicators since 2023. The question is whether or not that happens soon enough, because in the United States, overall, most sort of crime peaked in recent eras around between 2020 and 2022. So there's this larger issue of how data is being interpreted that I think we can get into. But basically, before 1973, DC was run completely by the federal government. They couldn't elect their own mayor. They couldn't elect their own city council. The Home Rule Act enabled that. So for those of us who, were little at that time or were born after, we don't know a DC that hasn't been able to elect a mayor, but that has actually only been around for about 50 years. And so DC has autonomy, but when they mess up, Congress can come in and intervene. And so we saw this during the mayorship of Marion Barry, that DC's finances were taken over by a control board that was put in place by Congress. And so now what President Trump is saying is that the crime situation has gotten so out of hand that he needs to be able to call in the National Guard for a month to get them to engage in policing activity.
Yeah. What should we be watching for in the coming weeks to gauge whether or not public opinion sees this as an effective way to govern?
So, I have no doubt that the national news outlets are going to include some type of question like this in surveys. So, we should see the fruits of that in a couple of weeks. I also want to see what happens. We want to see whether or not President Trump actually makes good on his threat to try to take over, policing in other cities. So he named a litany of cities like Baltimore and Oakland and Chicago and New York, where he was like, this could be coming to you. It's a lot harder for him to do that in state or in cities where there are states with governors. He would have to do something like he did in Los Angeles, and that's being litigated right now, where he has to say that the mayor and the governor are kind of derelict in their duties and not addressing a situation. And so I think that, if that were to happen, we would likely see litigation. And I think that there could be some litigation here about whether or not crime, as horrible as it is actually warranting sort of the definition of an emergency. But now that we are where we are, I think we want to see if crime rates fall further sort of in this coming month compared to previous months or last year in particular. And I, as somebody who has lived in Washington, D.C. before, I know that the crime rate varies depending on what part of the district you're in. I'm paying attention to Ward 7 and Ward 8. So that's the southeast part of the city. That's where there's typically been high crime. So, does this initiative actually make things better there, or does it make it worse?
Right.
So I think that there are a lot of things that we could be looking at.
All right. Thank you, Professor Gillespie. Really appreciate your insight on this.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. All right, take a look at Dahlonega. Boy, it looks gray on the outside. Yeah, plenty of cloudy skies. And we're going to see scattered showers off and on as we head through the day. A couple thunderstorms could be around as we head into the afternoon. Where we have those thunderstorms, could be some brief heavy rain that will be coming down, folks. So grab your umbrella before you leave the house today. Not the prettiest looking days, of course. Temperatures will be kept down below our average because of the cloud cover and the rain. Only expecting highs today to be in the low 80s. So be on the lookout, again, for those scattered showers.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem. We've had a main bus undervolt.
All right, that was the voice of James Lovell, commander of the commander of the Apollo 13 mission to the moon. He said those words in April 1970 after an explosion wounded his three-man spacecraft. Through the walk on board with his crew and controllers back on Earth. The nation held their collective breath. It was just enough to bring Lovell and his crewmates back to the Earth alive. All right, he died last week at the age of 97. He was one of only 3 astronauts who flew to the moon twice, but only one of the trio to ever walk on the moon's surface. Here now is Muriel Borowitz, the associate professor at Georgia Tech with the extensive experience in space and policy and international affairs. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's now we talk about this mission, right? This 4 space missions and one of the NASA's most experienced space travelers. But what kind of astronaut was he? Would you say?
Yes, I mean, Jim Lovell was a Gemini astronaut and then an Apollo astronaut, so he was one of these original sort of explorers, people willing to, take risks to really push the boundaries of what humanity is capable of. And a lot of the stories of him say, he's just a good-natured guy, a good person to work with. And I think, an inspiration to a lot of engineers in particular with that Apollo 13 mission, just so incredible what they were able to do in a crisis.
Yeah, these Apollo missions to the moon in the 60s and 70s were much a part of diplomacy as they were about exploration. But what role did astronauts like Lovell play in the space race?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's very clear when we look back at historical documents that the Apollo program in general was really about a race with the Soviet Union, and it was about demonstrating, what the U.S. system and what democracy was capable of doing. And I think it was, clearly very successful at that. And the astronauts themselves were really seen as sort of ambassadors, not only of the U.S., but of humanity. And so they did a lot of work traveling around the world, meeting with leaders and others in countries all over the place, really helping people all over the world to feel a part of what they were doing with the Apollo program.
Yeah, we touched on Apollo 13, and how was the narrative of that ill-fated mission and Lovell's leadership?
Yeah, so space, even today, but certainly back in the Apollo era, it's difficult. And there is always the possibility that something's going to go wrong. So they, on the Apollo 13, were going to the moon. They were intending to do a landing. And as they were getting into lunar orbit, they had an issue with one of the oxygen tanks exploding. It meant they wouldn't have enough fuel to actually, do the landing, do the mission as planned. And there wasn't immediately a clear solution to even get them back home to Earth safe. And so it really took some very quick thinking by the crew themselves, as well as NASA engineers on the ground, to kind of figure out, okay, here are the tools we have available to us. It's a very limited number of things that they brought with them to orbit. How can we use this to get a solution and get these people back home safely? And it really is pretty amazing that they were able to succeed and do that.
Meryl Borowitz with Georgia Tech, thanks so much for your insight. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Elon Musk has a new lawsuit. Find out who it's against when we return. We'll be back right after this. All right, welcome back to the show. Just when you thought the tariff clock had run out, another 90-day pause hits the buzzer. CNN's Maribel Aber joins us now from the NASDAQ market site in New York. Good morning, Maribel.
Good morning, Chesley.
It sounds like this time around, a timeout might just set the stage for the next big showdown between U.S. and China.
That's right. Timeout. It's shaping up that way. Chesley, the U.S. and China have extended the deadline for tariffs for another 90 days. With the move, the higher tariffs will kick in on November 10th. So they were set to resume today. The truce comes as retailers get set to stock up on goods ahead of the critical holiday shopping season. That results in a seasonal surge of imports from China of electronics, clothes, and toys. The extension locks in place tariffs of 30% on Chinese goods. It would have been as high as 145% without the extension. And just last week, President Trump told CNBC that the U.S. and China were getting very close to a trade agreement. Chesley.
Oh, man. OK. We'll hear more about that. All right. Ford is now investing billions all for a $30,000 electric truck.
Chesley, Ford believes it has the answer for how to produce low-cost electric vehicles. So the automaker plans to produce a line of new, cheaper EVs at a Louisville, Kentucky plant, starting with a $30,000 pickup truck next year. The key is a new manufacturing process that focuses on efficiency and can be adapted to a variety of vehicles, from SUVs to trucks. And the new EVs will be designed with 20% fewer parts and lighter materials, and feature operating systems that can be improved using over-the-air updates. Ford is calling this its Model T moment. It comes as the company is expected to lose more than $5 billion this year on its current line of electric vehicles. The company will invest $2 billion to overhaul that Louisville plant for the new EVs. This new strategy is part of Ford's efforts to compete with lower-cost EVs from China that have been grabbing market share around the world. Chesley, Ford's betting big that the road to EV dominance runs through Louisville.
Yeah, and that's the way things have been going. So we'll see. Speaking of EVs, a new lawsuit from Elon Musk, this one against Apple, but not for, it's for an unusual reason, right?
Yeah, well, Elon Musk is threatening to sue Apple over the ranking of his artificial intelligence chatbot Grok in the App Store. In a post on X, Musk said Apple was behaving in a manner that made it, quote, impossible for any AI company besides OpenAI to reach #1 in the App Store. OpenAI's ChatGPT is ranked #1 for top free apps. Grok is ranked 6. Musk said the App Store appears biased and favors established AI apps over challengers. He called the rankings an antitrust violation. He threatened immediate legal action. You know, Chesley, Chesley, it's the latest flashpoint in this long-running tension between Musk and Apple. Musk's feud with Apple spans the App Store fees to threats over Twitter. Now he's accusing of stacking the deck against his AI app. But one thing's for certain, if Musk is involved, we will hear about it.
Oh, you better believe it. You better believe it. Finally, two popular streaming services for one low price. Who knew that bundling things together could be this sporty?
That's like 1 + 2 = 4. ESPN and Fox teaming up to offer their new streaming services as a bundle. You'll be able to get the two together for $39.99 a month starting October 2nd. It's about $10 cheaper than the regular cost of the pair, and it's hoped the bundle will appeal to sports fans. The ESPN streaming service will have all the programming from its various networks. Disney's ESPN has also been building up its offerings for the streaming app. Just last week, it did a deal with the WWE for the U.S. rights to the Wrestling League's biggest live events, including WrestleMania and SummerSlam beginning next year. And the Fox One service will be heavy on sports with NFL Major League Baseball games along with programming from Fox News. Both of the new streaming services officially launched on August 21st ahead of the college football and NFL seasons. Chesley, are you ready for some football? Because you know I am.
Oh, man, you're speaking my language. Yeah, I'm ready. Overdue. Maribel, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
You got it.
All right, how about a little reggae at the Atlanta Symphony? Well, we're going to dive into why coming up. Stay right there. All right, welcome back. The Atlanta Symphony Hall has not only been a place to hear the melodies of Bach and Beethoven and Gershwin, it's also been the stage of people like Tony Bennett, Greg Allman, and Athens' own B-52s, right, among others. Now, an 80s band, which boasts a little red wine with a little reggae flair, is bringing its relentless tour to the Symphony Hall this coming weekend. Yeah, we're talking about UB40. Here to discuss more about it is the co-founding member and drummer, Jimmy Brown. Jimmy, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. Love the accent as well. You guys have been a part of the global music scene for over 45 years now. How have you been able to keep it going for all this time, man?
Well, it's miraculous, really. I mean, I don't know why we've lasted this long, but we just seem to still keep filling out venues, still making hit records. So we're going to carry on until people stop coming. So, yeah, it's a bit of a miracle, really, but we're loving it.
Yeah, I don't think they'll ever stop coming to you. You know, you've been behind the drums ever since day one. What's been the most rewarding part of your journey with UB40?
Sorry, say that again.
I said you've been behind the drums since day one with the band. What's been your most rewarding part of your journey with the band?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long journey, you know. I mean, it's we've had lots of ups, we've had a few downs. It's difficult to pick out different, you know, we're going to South Africa after Mandela was released and having a big walk-up playing to 100,000 people over 2 nights. Things like that, you know, playing Madison Square Garden, legendary venue. You know, there's been a lot of things have happened to us over the years, but we've stuck together and we're enjoying it more than ever now.
Yeah. You guys are creating new material. Talk to me about the new album that you guys are putting out.
Yeah, we've got a current album out called UB45, which is a mixture of some really old tunes way back in the 80s and some brand new material. You know, we like to play new stuff. We're going to be playing some new songs live. Obviously, we'll be playing hits as well, but we like playing new material as well. You know, we don't want to be a cabaret band or just a nostalgia band. We want to keep writing and we love working. So, yeah, we're going to carry on doing new stuff.
All right, and so you got your show kicking off, and your first stop in North America is right here in Atlanta. What made you guys kick it off in Atlanta?
Yeah, don't know why we're kicking off in Atlanta. We're considering we're landing in Florida. I thought we were going to be playing Florida, but it seems we're going to be playing Atlanta. And yeah, it's not a place we've been to many times, you know, but we've been there a few times and we like it. It's a multicultural city, and yeah, we love it.
When you look back over the years, right, and you kind of hit on this a little earlier, when you look back on the years, what made you guys stick together so long, or made you last so long?
Well, there's one secret is we share everything equally. We always make sure that everybody gets exactly the same reward, so we all feel like we own a part of it. And if you know, I recommend that to any band if they're starting. Share everything, you know, and don't just have the singer-songwriters and, you know, the drummer and the bass player doesn't get paid as much. everything's got to be equal, and we've stuck to that for our whole careers for all 45 years.
Yeah. How long will this tour go?
Well, it's pretty relentless. Hence the name. See what I did there? It's going to be 2.5 months, I believe. I think we're going to be finishing in Mexico right at the end. But we're going everywhere, going to Canada. We're going east to west, north to south, which is why we called it the Relentless Tour, because it's going to be non-stop for a good 2.5 months.
Yeah. Talk about the list that you guys will be playing. You mentioned it earlier. You're going to be playing some of the new album, but you're also going to be playing some hits as well. What can people expect when they come to the show?
Well, we're going to play all the hits, you know. I mean, we've got half a dozen big tunes that were worldwide hits. They're going to be in the set. But, you know, we're also going to be playing. We like to challenge ourselves. We don't want to be just sitting back on nostalgia, you know. We want to be performing new material. And I like the idea of having to try and turn on an audience with new stuff, because, you know, if we don't perform it well, they're not going to remember it. So that's a challenge, and I like that challenge. But you're going to hear every hit. So we're definitely going to be playing those.
So are you ready? I mean, this is going to be a long, relentless tour. How have you been preparing to get yourself ready to go?
Well, you know, I'll be fitter by the end of the tour than I am when I start. So we don't need that much preparation. Actually, touring is going to keep us fit. And, you know, I'm looking forward to it. We've done it many, many times. Been to the States 5 years running, every year, the last 5 years. And, it's enjoyable, you know. We're on the road with our closest friends. We all love each other. We're not like a lot of other bands where they don't actually like each other much and they just get on stage together. But we live out of each other's pockets. We always have done since we were at school together. So, you know, we're ready for what we're going to do.
Sounds good. Drummer Jimmy Brown joining us today. Thanks so much for being with us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right, no problem, man. If you want to go to the show this Sunday, well, you can do so. The doors open at 6 p.m. The show will kick off at 7. Again, this will be at the Atlanta Symphony Hall, the Woodruff Arts Center. Tickets are still available through Ticketmaster. Go check them out, man. Another look at the forecast when we return, plus my final take when we come back. Stay with us. Well, another gray day in our forecast area. Looking at mostly cloudy skies today. 83 degrees will be the afternoon high. Now, if we get some sunshine, and I think we'll get a few peaks of it here and there, if we get enough of it, it will boost that temperature up a little bit. 85 for the high temperature on Wednesday. I think we'll see a little bit more in the way of sunshine, even though we'll still have a 50% chance for scattered showers and thunderstorms to be around. 30% chance on Thursday. Looking at 88 for the high, 20% chance by Friday. So what you get there is a correlation. You see, as the threat for rain starts to go down, our temperature will start to go up. We'll get a little bit more in the way of sunshine. It's going to help to heat things up around here, some of that humidity around as well. You're looking at 90 for the high temperature on Friday. Going to stay right there for Saturday as well. Sunday, 20% chance for the rain will be near the 90-degree mark. You're looking at 88 by Monday. We'll have a little bit more of that rain coming back our way. 30% chance for a few isolated showers and thunderstorms to be around. All right, in an attempt to gain younger customers, Cracker Barrel is now changing its Southern-style restaurant look, and customers are not feeling it. Yeah, the restaurant chain announced back in March. Known for its mix-match, cluttered decor, they're remodeling their restaurants to be more cleaner and brighter, adding more lights, they say. Now, according to social media, those who frequent Cracker Barrel are just not happy about it. In fact, one fan say, a swing and a miss. We eat here for a reason. We don't want bright and open. We want grandma's house. Another saying, okay, I see what you did. Nice work. Now put it back. Now, despite those comments, the company says most customers and staff like the new look and they feel like they're moving in the right direction. So it looks like the new look Cracker Barrel is here to stay. But I think if they're going to attract the young customers, they may need to change the name. Cracker Barrel just sounds old, and it makes you think of that cluttered look and the old grandma house appeal. So if you're going younger, you're going to have to come up with something a little more hip, I think. I can't think of anything right now because you don't pay me to do so. But good luck to you. That's all we got for you today, folks. Make it a great day. Try to encourage someone.